You've been showing up, haven't you, day after day after day. You've been doing the thing, writing the words, lifting the weights, building the business, practicing the skill. Whatever your thing is, you've been there. You've been consistent in ways that other people can't even imagine. They see you from the outside and they think you have discipline, they think you have willpower, they think you have something they don't have. But you know the truth. You know what it actually feels like on the inside. It feels like pushing water uphill. It feels like screaming into a void that never echoes back. It feels like the universe is looking directly at you, seeing every single effort you're making, and choosing, deliberately choosing, to ignore you. You've been consistent for weeks, for months, maybe even years, and the silence is deafening. The lack of response is so complete, so total, that you're starting to wonder if you're even real, if your actions even register, if there's some frequency of effort that you haven't reached yet, some threshold you haven't crossed, and you're terrified, absolutely terrified, that you never will, that you'll keep showing up to a party where you're fundamentally uninvited. And here's the part that keeps you awake at night, the part you don't say out loud. You're starting to suspect that consistency doesn't actually matter, that the people who win, who break through, who get the universe to finally pay attention, they're not more consistent than you. They're just luckier or more talented, or born into the right circumstances. And your consistency, all this showing up, all this effort, all this discipline that's costing you everything, it's just you going through the motions of a ritual that stopped working a long time ago, if it ever worked at all. But what if I told you that the reason the universe seems to be ignoring you has nothing to do with the volume of your effort? What if the problem isn't that you're not showing up enough, but that you're showing up on the wrong frequency entirely? What if your consistency has been a radio signal broadcasting on a wavelength that doesn't exist, and no matter how loud you make that signal, how long you transmit, it will never, can never be received, because you're not transmitting what you think you're transmitting. You think you're sending out discipline, effort, worthiness, readiness. But what if what you're actually broadcasting is desperation, is need, is the frequency of someone still trying to prove something, still trying to earn something, still operating from a fundamental assumption that you are separate from the thing you want, and that your consistency is the bridge you're trying to build across that separation? And what if that assumption, that frequency of separation, is the exact thing that keeps the separation in place? What if the universe isn't ignoring you at all? What if it's responding perfectly, flawlessly, to exactly what you're actually transmitting? Stay with me, because this goes deeper than you think, deeper than motivation, deeper than strategy. This is about the hidden physics of how reality actually responds to human presence. And if you can understand this, if you can shift the frequency of your consistency from effort to embodiment, from trying to being, everything changes. Not someday, not when you finally deserve it, but immediately, because the universe has never been ignoring you. It's been waiting for you to transmit on the frequency of already having arrived. Let me show you something about frequency that changes how you see everything. A frequency is not volume, it's not intensity, it's not duration. A frequency is a quality, a vibration, a particular wavelength of being. And here's what's crucial. You cannot fake a frequency. You cannot perform it. You cannot manufacture it through effort, because a frequency is what you are, not what you do. And this is where everyone gets it wrong. They think consistency is about action, about showing up, about doing the repetitions. And yes, action matters, but the action is not the frequency. The action is the consequence of the frequency. You act from what you are, and what you are is broadcasting at a particular frequency every single moment, whether you're aware of it or not. And reality, The universe, the field, whatever you want to call the responsive intelligence that patterns your experience, it's not responding to your actions. It's responding to your frequency. It's matching you perfectly, always, without exception. Think about a radio for a moment. You turn the dial and you're searching for a station. You want to hear music, news, something specific, but the radio doesn't create the broadcast. The broadcast is already there, already happening, already filling the air around you. The radio just receives it. And the only thing that determines what you receive is where you set the dial. What frequency you tune to. You could be surrounded by 100 different broadcasts, 100 different possibilities, all existing simultaneously in the same space. But you only hear the one that matches your frequency. The others might as well not exist, not because they're not real, but because you're not tuned to them. And your life works the same way. The reality you want, the breakthrough you're working toward, the recognition, the abundance, the love, the success, whatever it is, it's not somewhere in the future waiting for you to earn it. It's here, now, broadcasting, but you can't receive it because you're tuned to the wrong frequency. You're tuned to the frequency of not having it, of needing it, of trying to get it. And as long as you're on that frequency, as long as that's what you're broadcasting, that's what you'll receive back. More of not having, more of needing, more of trying. And here's where it gets strange, where it starts to violate everything you've been taught about how success works. The frequency of having something is not produced by getting it. It's the other way around. You broadcast the frequency of having it, and then you get it. The having comes from the frequency, not the frequency from the having. This is the backwards law. This is why everything you've been doing hasn't worked. Because you've been using consistency to try to create the frequency. You've been trying to earn your way into the vibration of deserving, but you can't earn a frequency. You can't work your way into a state of being. Being precedes doing, always. And if your being, your frequency, is still broadcasting lack, still broadcasting unworthiness, still broadcasting the need to prove yourself, then your doing, no matter how consistent, will only reinforce that frequency. You'll be working hard to stay exactly where you are. I know this sounds abstract. I know you want something concrete, something you can do, but that's the trap. That's the frequency of effort, the frequency that says if I just do more, try harder, be more consistent, then finally I'll be worthy of receiving. But the universe doesn't work that way. The universe is not a vending machine where you put in enough effort, and eventually it dispenses the reward. The universe is a mirror. It reflects back to you what you are, not what you're trying to be, not what you're working to become, what you are right now. And what you are right now is a particular frequency, a particular vibration. And that vibration is either in alignment with what you want or it's not. And if it's not, no amount of consistency in action will change that. Because you're being consistently out of alignment. So what does it mean to shift frequency? What does it mean to broadcast from the state of already having rather than the state of trying to get? It means you stop waiting for external validation to give you permission to feel the way you would feel if you had the thing. It means you stop postponing your sense of wholeness until the achievement arrives. It means you recognize that the feeling you're chasing, the state you think the achievement will give you, that feeling is available right now. Not as a trick, not as positive thinking, but as a recognition of what's actually true. You are already whole. You are already complete. The thing you're working toward, you want it because you think it will make you feel a certain way, successful, worthy, seen, valued. But those feelings are not produced by external circumstances. Those feelings are frequencies, states of being. And you can tune to them right now, not because you've earned them, but because they're available. They're broadcasting. And the moment you tune to them, the moment you start operating from that frequency, everything in your external reality begins to reorganize to match. But here's where resistance comes in. Here's where your mind rebels. Because if this is true, if you can just shift frequency and everything changes, then why haven't you already done it? Why are you still struggling? Why is the breakthrough still not here? And the answer is because you don't actually believe it yet. You're still operating from the old frequency. The frequency that says, I'll believe it when I see it. But the universe operates on the opposite principle. You'll see it when you believe it. You'll see it when you embody it. You'll see it when you become it. And becoming it doesn't mean faking it. It doesn't mean pretending. It means recognizing that the separation between you and the thing you want is an illusion. That you're not trying to get somewhere. You're trying to remember what you already are. Think about an actor preparing for a role. A great actor doesn't pretend to be the character. They become the character. They study the character's history, their motivations, their wounds, their desires, until the character's frequency becomes their frequency. And when they step on stage or in front of the camera, they're not performing, they're being. And the audience doesn't see someone pretending. They see someone embodying a reality. And for the duration of that performance, that reality is real. Not metaphorically real, actually real. The emotions are real. The responses are real. The presence is real. Because the actor has tuned to the frequency of that character. And from that frequency, everything flows naturally. You don't have to think about every line, every gesture, every expression. You just be the character, and the character acts through you. And this is what you need to do with the reality you want. You need to become the person who already has it. Not in the future, not as a goal, now. You need to tune to that frequency now. And from that frequency, your actions change. Not because you're trying to act differently, but because different actions are natural at that frequency. And this is where your consistency becomes powerful. This is where it finally matters. Not consistency in action for the sake of action, but consistency in frequency. Consistency in the state of being you're broadcasting from. If you show up every day from the frequency of lack, from the frequency of not enough, from the frequency of trying to prove yourself, you're just reinforcing that frequency. You're making it stronger. You're becoming more consistent at being the person who doesn't have what they want. But if you can shift the frequency first, if you can tune to the state of already being the person who has achieved the thing, and then act from that state, then your consistency becomes a signal the universe cannot ignore. Because now you're broadcasting on the frequency that matches what you want. Now you're in resonance. And when you're in resonance, when your internal frequency matches the frequency of your desired reality, the universe has no choice but to deliver it. Not because you earned it, not because you did enough, but because you became it. And reality always reflects back what you are. But let me be clear about something. This is not about visualization. This is not about affirmations. This is not about thinking positive thoughts and hoping the universe notices. Those things operate at the level of mind. And the mind is not where frequency is generated. Frequency is generated at the level of being, at the level of your nervous system, at the level of your subconscious assumptions about who you are and what's possible for you. And those assumptions were not formed by thinking. They were formed by experience, by repetition, by the accumulation of moments that taught you what to expect from life. And if your accumulated experience has taught you to expect struggle, to expect lack, to expect that good things come slowly and with great difficulty, then that's the frequency you're broadcasting. And no amount of positive thinking will override it. Because your subconscious doesn't believe your thoughts. Your subconscious believes your patterns. So how do you change the pattern? How do you reprogram the frequency? You do it the same way it was programmed in the first place, through experience, through repetition, through the accumulation of moments. But this time, intentionally, this time, you create the experiences that teach your nervous system the new frequency. And this is where your consistency comes back in. But it's a different kind of consistency. It's not consistency in grinding. It's consistency in embodiment. It's showing up every day, not to do more, but to be more. To practice the frequency of already having. To spend time in the state you would be in if the thing you want was already real. Not thinking about it, not visualizing it, being it, feeling it in your body, letting your nervous system learn what that frequency feels like, and the more you do this, the more natural it becomes, the more automatic, until one day you realize you're not practicing anymore. You've become it. The frequency is yours, and from that frequency, everything else flows. Let me tell you what this looks like in practice. You wake up in the morning, and before you check your phone, before you start your to-do list, before you begin the performance of being productive, you take a moment, you feel into the version of you who has already achieved the thing, not the future version, the version that exists right now in a parallel frequency. And you ask, how does this version of me feel right now? Not how would they feel? How do they feel? Present tense, because they exist, they're real. They're just broadcasting on a different frequency, and you tune to that frequency. You feel it in your chest, in your belly, in the quality of your breath. You let your body learn what it feels like to be that person, and then you move through your day from that state, not trying to get there, not working toward it, already there, already being it. And your actions change, not because you're forcing them to change, but because different actions are natural from that state. A person who already has what they want doesn't operate from desperation, doesn't grasp, doesn't need to prove anything. They act from overflow, from generosity, from calm certainty, and those actions create different results. Not because the actions themselves are magic, but because the frequency behind the actions is different, and reality responds to frequency, not to action. And here's where it gets really interesting. Here's where the paradox deepens. When you operate from this frequency, when you embody the state of already having, you stop needing the thing. You still want it. You're still working toward it, but you don't need it to feel complete. You don't need it to validate your worth. You don't need it to prove you're good enough, because you've already given yourself those things. You've already tuned to the frequency of worthiness. And from that frequency, the wanting becomes light, playful, curious. It stops being this heavy, desperate thing that drains your energy. It becomes an adventure, a game. And the universe responds to that. Because when you stop needing something, when you stop broadcasting the frequency of lack, you remove the resistance, you remove the static on the line, and the thing can finally come to you, not because you stopped wanting it, but because you stopped needing it. And the universe knows the difference. The universe always knows the difference. This is the secret that every master in every tradition has tried to communicate in their own way. That the obstacle is not out there. The obstacle is the frequency of obstacle. The lack is not in your circumstances. The lack is in the frequency of lack. And the moment you shift frequency, the moment you tune to the reality you want as if it's already here, it begins to materialize. Not magically, not instantly, but inevitably, because you've aligned yourself with it. You've become a match for it. And reality, which is infinitely responsive, infinitely intelligent, begins to rearrange to reflect your new frequency. Opportunities appear, synchronicities multiply, doors open that you didn't even know existed, not because you're lucky, not because you finally earned it, but because you changed the frequency you're broadcasting. And the universe is simply matching you, the way it always has, the way it always will, and your consistency, when applied to maintaining this frequency rather than grinding through actions, becomes unstoppable, Because you're not fighting anymore. You're not pushing against resistance. You're flowing. You're in alignment. And from alignment, effort feels effortless. Not because it's easy, but because it's natural. Because you're doing what you're meant to do from the state you're meant to be in. And that state attracts everything you need. The right people, the right information, the right opportunities. Not because you're chasing them, but because you've become the frequency that they're attracted to. You've become the signal they're looking for. And they find you, not when you deserve them, not when you've suffered enough, but when you become the frequency that matches them. Now I want to address something you might be feeling right now. Resistance, doubt. The part of you that says this sounds good, but it can't be this simple. That says if this were true, everyone would be doing it. That says you've tried things like this before and they didn't work. And I want to honor that resistance because it's not wrong. It's protecting you from disappointment, from false hope, from the pain of trying something and failing again. But here's what I want you to understand. The reason this hasn't worked before, the reason your previous attempts at mindset shifts or manifestation or positive thinking didn't create the changes you wanted, is because you were operating at the level of thought. You were trying to think your way into a new frequency, but thought doesn't change frequency. Thought is surface level. Frequency is deep. Frequency is subconscious. Frequency is the accumulated weight of all your experiences and beliefs and assumptions about who you are and how the world works. And you can't change that with thoughts. You can only change it with new experiences, with new patterns, with new evidence that teaches your nervous system a different truth. And that takes time. Not in the way you think, not years of suffering, but time spent consistently in the new frequency. Time spent practicing the embodiment. Time spent being the person you want to become until that person is no longer a practice, but a reality. And this is where most people quit. They try the frequency shift for a day, maybe a week, and when the external world hasn't transformed yet, they conclude it doesn't work. They go back to the old frequency, the familiar frequency of effort and struggle and not enough, because at least that frequency is known, at least it's predictable. But what they don't understand is that the lag time between shifting your frequency and seeing the external changes is not evidence that it's not working. It's evidence that it's working exactly as it should. Because reality doesn't reorganize instantly. It responds yes, immediately it begins to respond. But the visible manifestation takes time. The same way planting a seed doesn't produce a tree overnight. You plant the seed, and for weeks, maybe months, you see nothing above ground. And if you dug up the seed to check if it was working, you'd kill it, you'd destroy the process. But if you trust, if you keep watering, if you maintain the conditions, eventually the sprout breaks through. And then the growth accelerates. And then you have a tree, and the tree was worth the wait. But only if you didn't give up during the invisible phase. Your frequency shift is the seed. Your consistent embodiment is the watering. And the breakthrough, the manifestation, the external validation, that's the tree. But you're in the underground phase right now. The phase where nothing visible is happening. And your mind is screaming at you to give up, to go back to what you know, to stop wasting your time on something that clearly isn't working. But your mind is looking at the wrong thing. Your mind is looking at the surface, looking for the tree, not understanding that the real work is happening beneath. The roots are growing. The foundation is forming. And if you can just trust the process, if you can maintain the frequency, if you can keep showing up to the embodiment, even when you see no evidence that it's working, the breakthrough is inevitable. Not because you earned it, but because that's how seeds work. That's how frequency works. That's how reality works. And here's the thing about the universe, about this responsive field that you're broadcasting into every moment. It's not judging you. It's not testing you. It's not withholding from you until you prove you're worthy. It's simply matching you. Perfectly. Always. And when you're broadcasting the frequency of unworthiness, it matches that. When you're broadcasting the frequency of struggle, it matches that. When you're broadcasting the frequency of not enough, it matches that. Not as punishment, not as a lesson, but as a mirror, as feedback, showing you exactly what you are, so you can choose to be something different. And the moment you choose differently, the moment you shift to a new frequency, it begins to match that too. Immediately, without hesitation, without requiring you to earn it first. The universe doesn't care about your past, doesn't care about your mistakes, doesn't care about how long you've been stuck. The universe only cares about what you're broadcasting right now. This moment, and every moment is a new opportunity to broadcast something different. Every moment is a chance to choose a new frequency, and the universe will match it. Every time, without fail. So let me ask you something. What frequency are you broadcasting right now? Not what frequency do you want to broadcast. Not what frequency do you think you should broadcast. What frequency are you actually broadcasting? How do you know? You know, by looking at your life, by looking at what's showing up, by looking at the patterns that keep repeating. Because your external reality is a perfect mirror of your internal frequency. If you're experiencing lack, you're broadcasting lack. If you're experiencing struggle, you're broadcasting struggle. If you're experiencing rejection, you're broadcasting unworthiness. And you can argue with this. You can say it's not fair. You can say you deserve better. You can say you've been working so hard. But the universe doesn't care about fair, doesn't care about deserve, doesn't care about hard work. The universe cares about frequency, and it matches yours. Exactly. Always. And this might make you angry. This might make you want to close this video and say, this is just more spiritual bypassing, more blaming the victim, more suggesting that your circumstances are your fault. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying your circumstances are your fault. I'm saying your circumstances are your frequency. And there's a huge difference. Fault implies judgment. Fault implies you did something wrong, but frequency is neutral. Frequency just is, and you can change it, not by trying harder, not by being better, but by tuning to a different station, by choosing a different vibration, by becoming a different version of you. And the moment you do, everything changes. Not because you earned it, but because you matched it. And this is where your power is. Not in controlling outcomes, not in manipulating circumstances, not in forcing reality to bend to your will, but in choosing your frequency, in deciding what vibration you're going to broadcast, regardless of what's happening around you. Because what's happening around you is just the echo of what you were broadcasting yesterday, last week, last year. It's old news. It's the past. But what you're broadcasting right now, that's creating your future. That's planting the seeds for what's coming. And you get to choose. Every moment you get to choose. Will you broadcast from the frequency of lack or the frequency of abundance? From the frequency of struggle or the frequency of flow? From the frequency of unworthiness or the frequency of inherent value? And whatever you choose, the universe will match. Without judgment, without delay, it will give you exactly what you are. And here's the beautiful thing, the terrifying thing, the liberating thing. You've always had this power. You've always been broadcasting. You've always been creating your reality through your frequency. You just didn't know it. You thought you were a victim of circumstances. You thought reality was happening to you. You thought the universe was ignoring you or punishing you or testing you. But it was never any of those things. It was always just matching you, reflecting you back to yourself, showing you what you are so you could choose to be something different. And now that you know, now that you see how it works, you can't unknow it. You can't go back to unconscious creation. You can play small if you want. You can stay in the old frequency if it's comfortable, but you'll know you're choosing it. You'll know you could choose differently. And that knowing changes everything. Because the moment you take responsibility for your frequency, the moment you recognize that your internal state is creating your external reality, you stop being a victim. You stop waiting for the world to change. You stop hoping someone will save you. You stop looking for permission or validation or approval, because you realize you don't need any of those things. You just need to shift your frequency. You just need to become the person who already has what you want. And from that state, that frequency, everything you need comes to you, not as reward, not as achievement, but as reflection, as the inevitable consequence of what you are. And this is where we've been heading all along. This is the realization that changes everything. Your consistency is not about the actions. Your consistency is about the frequency. And when you're consistent in the frequency of already being the person you want to become, when you show up every day not to earn something but to embody something, when you broadcast from the state of already having rather than the state of trying to get, the universe has no choice but to match you. Your signal becomes so clear, so strong, so unwavering, that reality reorganizes around it. Not eventually. Now, it's already happening. Every moment you maintain the frequency, you're collapsing the distance between you and your desired reality. You're pulling it toward you, or more accurately, you're becoming it. And as you become it, it appears. Not because you manifested it, but because you became the frequency that it exists at. And now you're simply experiencing what was always there, always available, waiting for you to tune in. So the question is not whether the universe is listening. The universe is always listening. The universe is always responding. The question is, what are you broadcasting? What frequency are you showing up as every single day? Because that frequency, that vibration, that state of being, that's what the universe hears. That's what the universe matches. That's what becomes your reality. And if you want a different reality, you don't need to do more. You don't need to try harder. You don't need to be more consistent in your actions. You need to be more consistent in your frequency. You need to show up every day as the person who already has what you want, not thinking about having it, not working toward having it, being the person who has it, right now, in this moment. And from that frequency, the actions flow naturally. The opportunities appear naturally. The reality materializes naturally. Because you're no longer trying to get somewhere. You're already there. You've already arrived. And the universe is simply confirming what you already know to be true. If something in these words has resonated with you, if you feel something shifting in how you understand your own power, I want to invite you to mark this moment, to acknowledge that you've received something here. You can do that by liking this video, not as a favor to me, but as a gesture to yourself, as a statement of intent that you're ready to shift frequency, that you're ready to stop broadcasting from lack and start broadcasting from wholeness. And if you want to continue this exploration, if you want more transmissions that operate at this level of frequency rather than the level of information, consider subscribing. Because this channel exists for people who are ready to stop trying to manipulate reality and start aligning with it. Who understand that the power is not in the doing but in the being. Who are ready to become the frequency that the universe cannot ignore. This is not the end. This is the beginning. Because now you know. Now you understand. The universe was never ignoring you. It was waiting for you to stop broadcasting on the frequency of trying and start broadcasting on the frequency of being. And the moment you make that shift, everything changes. Not because you finally earned it, but because you finally became it. And what you become, you receive. Always, without exception. That's the law. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. You just forgot. But now you remember, and remembering changes everything.